Okay, hi everyone. Thank you, Virginie, for that fascinating preview on RCS. I'm going to continue the theme now in this next Meth Connect session with a panel session where we're going to be looking at RCS business messaging, specifically how to make money from it. So I'm hoping that my fellow panelists can see me. I can't see them. I'm going to presume that they can hear me, and I'm going to introduce them. And if they can, they're going to shout back and say, yes, I'm here. So first of all, Robert Jones from BT, are you there?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Tim.
Hi. And Inderpal from Dotgo. Can we hear you and see you?
Yes, hello.
Excellent.
Hello, everybody.
Good. Alex Nourouzi from Orange. Hooray! Srinivas Rao from MTN.
Hi.
Excellent. And Alexandre Gavine from Bouygues Telecom. Oh, this technology is superb. It's all working. I can see you all. What can possibly go wrong? So anyway, yeah, thanks for joining. We've got until 3 UK time, which is about 35 minutes. And as I say, we're going to dig into the topic of RCS and how you make and maybe how you save money from adopting this rich messaging channel. So let's kick off with the and as ever, please ask questions in the comments thread, and we'll get to those at the end. So let's start off with I think it goes to Srinivas first. Big picture, why do brands need to embrace rich messaging? Not just RCS, but obviously predominantly RCS in the post-COVID world that we're about to enter.
Well, I think at large, we need to look at how the economies and how the digital world is basically evolving, and we continuously see newer ways of for businesses to run their business models and operations. I mean, digital transformation has been the key word, but to make it real, to make it actually tangible, it is very important for brands to bring their services as close as possible to the customers, make it more tangible, make it more available 24/7. You can't expect a customer to walk into a grocery store between the hours of 9 to 7 in the evening or something like that, and get their services rendered or delivered to them. A customer might want to order, let's say, a pack of milk or whatever at 2 o'clock in the night, have it delivered in the morning, or they might, looking at the example of telcos, for example, they might want to get their data recharge done maybe in the middle of the night while watching a Netflix movie or something like that. So services need to be available, brand services need to be available 24/7 all the time. Obviously, that can be done through more than one ways. I mean, some people might argue there are websites, there are apps that are available, but once again, people do not use more than 10 apps or 10 websites at the top of their minds most of the times. So messaging apps are always one of those top used apps in the home screens of mobile phones of most of the users. And then how do brands make themselves visible and available on those platforms is probably the key to making sure brands have their services accessible to. So those brands that are able to do this, they're more accessible, they're more available to customers. The brands that fail to do so, obviously, they will continuously face challenges. COVID is obviously going to exaggerate that whole scenario even more.
Yeah. So we've kind of established that there's a need for this for brands to embrace this channel because that's where the customers are. So let's talk about RCS specifically. Alex, Orange Alex, I'm going to call you.
Okay.
If I can come to you, RCS, how is it different from the other rich messaging channels that are out there? What can you do in it that you maybe can't do in ABC or WhatsApp and so on?
I think first of all, let's look at how RCS builds on SMS. I think today SMS, we've seen the results of the uptick in SMS ATP traffic in 2020. I think from Mobile Squared, 20 to 30% increase in traffic there as businesses move online. They can't physically open. So there's been a big acceleration towards online and one-time passwords and stuff like that. So compared with SMS, anyway, certainly it builds. SMS I think is a very good channel as a notification, a one-way communication. But I think RCS really builds upon that and allows us to have a compelling two-way full multimedia exchange with customers, leading, taking a note, creating a notification and leading towards kind of a conversational commerce. I think the key points are the verification, the richer media, the two-way exchange. Yeah. What is compelling compared with let's say WhatsApp is today? I think those features today don't exist. The chip list, the rich cards in WhatsApp. I think that we're starting to see more and more improvements on WhatsApp. We have pay buttons, the slick integration between kind of the Facebook shop and WhatsApp. But I think that that's really the standout for me is all of those features exist today as part of the UP2 client. We had the European Roundtable an hour ago or so, and pretty much everybody who counts an RCS customer is UP2 compliant, has access to all of that. And I think what's interesting is that we can actually build a real amazing end-to-end experience, adding in not just a promotional message, converting that into a sell through potentially mobile direct carrier billing, using our enablers, identification through things like Mobile Connect, all the way through to e-ticketing. So I think we have a full end-to-end experience.
With some of the other channels, you can't really start a conversation with your customers. ABC, yes. Certainly. I think there's certain limits on WhatsApp. What about in RCS? How proactive can you be?
Still to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I think that you're right. I think that's the big distinction today is with the WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. They're limited to P2A and maybe notifications. I think that RCS certainly. I think there's obviously with the GDPR rules coming in a couple of years ago. Now we're being more and more prudent about how we communicate with our customers, even via SMS and emailing. Certainly, I talk about for our own direct marketing purposes, to our own customers. And I think that we've been talking about, receiving any communications from Orange. And I think, and that extends not just SMS or email, but also RCS. So I think we're relying on that opt-in to send those messages. But I think it's an important point in that consent.
Okay. So the point of this session is to really dig into revenue and making money. Some MNOs, let's look at it from the MNO perspective. So how can an MNO make money from RCS at the moment, both in terms of generating money for A2P, but also maybe through promoting their own products through this channel? So, Robert, I think you might have something to say on this.
So I think there's a number of opportunities for RCS which build on SMS. It's already a strong revenue stream for the networks, and RCS just builds on that with additional volume and value. So Alex mentioned there some of the features which I'd say are a premium set of features to SMS. Some of them more basic, such as read receipts, richer media, brand validation. That's going to command a premium price. So there's certainly incremental revenue there to SMS. But then it's also opened up entirely new markets. Some of the recent stats we've seen, 23% of app users abandon after one use, 71% churn after 90 days. So apps, and aside from that, apps are costly for businesses to develop. RCS gives you that app-like experience native to the handset. So again, another market for RCS, which SMS isn't really penetrating. And then, another big trend is deflection of calls away from call centers. Another stat that I think is really powerful is that 56% of people would rather message a business than call customer services. And I think all of us would agree, it isn't our preference to call a mobile network, a bank, and ask when the next direct debit is going out or what's our balance on our bill. So session-based pricing on RCS enables this. And that's not just from a charging perspective. Again, it's that richer feature set which enables an entirely new use case. And the benefits from a business perspective are significant in there when you integrate that with chatbots and AI to automate some of them interactions. So quite a significant revenue stream there. And that's without looking at directory and discovery. Brands are becoming increasingly I'd say frustrated probably with some of the social media channels and the control they have over advertising. Obviously difficult as well and expensive from an online advert perspective. So us as M&Os bringing directory and discovery, really enabling P2A, which is something we don't even speak about in SMS. P2A is an entirely new revenue stream. So I think there's some really significant benefits there from a business perspective, and that's essentially what we want to do. We want to build a market, and that's how the M&Os will make money from RCS. You add to that then the mobile networks are some of the biggest users of SMS already, and we've been running a number of campaigns already on RCS, and we'll run all future campaigns on RCS. It is giving us that app-like experience. We shared a slide earlier on today where we're seeing 5 times conversion of any other channel that we've previously used. So it shows just how much power there is in RCS and that richer feature set. So yeah, really excited about RCS as an MNO.
Can you walk us through some of these campaigns that you've done for your own network?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done a number of campaigns now. We're probably in excess of 10. One of the campaigns was to do, or one of the campaigns we've done the most research on, I guess, was to do with retention and upselling of a handset. So you've got a Samsung user, and we're trying to upsell them to the latest Samsung handset. And we targeted them through a number of channels. We're already a large user of MMS, which is something in the UK that really isn't a market for brands. MMS has always been too expensive, so we've already been using MMS in anger within our campaigns. But RCS was nearly 5 times more conversion or click-through rate than of MMS as well, which is partially, I guess, a richer channel. And we learned some really important lessons from that. When we started off with RCS, I have in the past probably been guilty of telling people to simply take their SMS campaign and convert that to RCS. And that does give you some features such as read receipt, but you really need to bring in your marketing team and start to put that richer media in there, personalize it, make it more relevant. And we did a large amount of A/B testing, starting to understand the subtlety of a buy now button versus a click here for more info. Shading around buttons. So they're really subtle differences, which I guess we haven't had to consider with an SMS previously. And it was quite easy to put together a 160 character message in SMS. So there's definitely a little bit more to think about in RCS, but the returns have been significant and definitely worth the effort.
So can you just recap on what those returns were in case anyone wasn't watching earlier? So you said 5 times. Yeah,
so we were getting 31% click-through from our RCS in comparison to, I think it was just over 5% on SMS. And you can imagine why that is. If you're able to put a picture of a handset in there and not only one handset, obviously with a carousel, you can put a number of options. So it is giving you that app-like experience and quite a significant opportunity to market to a customer within a single message.
Excellent. Okay, so Bouygues, Alex, are you there? Have we lost? I think we might have lost the other Alex. Okay, I'll come to Inderpal then. We haven't heard from you yet. What are your thoughts on from your observations? How are brands using RCS at the moment? What are the most common kind of use cases, and how might they make money from the channel?
Well, the brands are using this from a perspective of doing sales and providing support as well. And I think that right now they are doing some pilots. They are doing some early trials for various use cases. Some of them, for example, are using it simply as a replacement for SMS, but much richer, much pictorial, and with action buttons, so that the click-through rate and response rate is much higher. And I think throughout people are observing anywhere from 2x to 10x the response rates. Rob mentioned 5x from a carrier perspective in the particular test they ran, and the particular campaign they ran. And I think that's pretty much reflective of the results we are seeing in the industry. One of the interesting use cases that brands are using is for one-time password. This is a very simple use case they're currently using with SMS, but there are issues. There is trust issue, there is security, there is branding. And with RCS, even for an one-time password, they're able to add their logo, a check mark, and increase the trust amongst customers, and are seeing results as much as 10% higher success rate in completing a one-time password through RCS. That's an example of a very simple use case where brands are benefiting from it as well.
That's interesting because we get hung up on rich media and carousels and videos and so on, but just having that verification and really the basics of the message is something that you could do through SMS, but just with that verification and tick badge element, you're massively increasing. So, yeah. Srinivas, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think Inderpal is spot on, and sometimes instead of taking a long shot and trying to deliver very exciting, very complicated experiences, it might slow down the adoption of technology. And I think, in my view, starting very basic steps like a one-time password, as Inderpal mentioned, and having that verification, the basic ability for brands to be able to show themselves as being a verified sender. That alone extends a lot of value, and that is not obviously limited to RCS. That is also being used by WhatsApp today, is being available on Twitter or Instagram, and so all these brands, when they want their presence on some of these social medias, they want them to be seen as verified accounts, so that it extends a value and trust into some of those things. So I totally agree with what has been just said.
And so, I think, just to kind of please, we've also had brands use it for content, to deliver content and in a very interactive fashion, and using carousels and using action buttons, and that's been very effective as well.
Great. Okay, so Alex, if I can come back to you. Quite often, I've had conversations before about RCS and other rich messaging channels, and when you get onto the topic of the business model, it all gets a little bit. People get a bit nervous, and obviously, it's not straightforward in the way that charging for SMS was. So, what are the models that you think are appropriate for this, and what have you actually seen in practice in terms of charging for sessions, charging by the day, charging by return on investment, and so on?
Okay, yeah, I think you're bang on right. I mean, today SMS A2P is relatively simple. It's a cost per message. Yeah, I think it's a service that we've launched a number of years ago. It goes well. Everybody understands it. It's not an issue. Yeah, I think obviously we were limited to 160 characters. With RCS, we've just already named a number of the different features. So the potential for changing the way of charging is of course increases dramatically. You can potentially do it per event, per session, per message, type of content sent, per monthly active user. So there's a number of things, maybe more towards a revenue share type agreement, because essentially the value for the brand is higher than just cost of a single message. So there's a whole lot of different models, but I think what's important is at the moment we're looking at probably single message or a one-way communication, and then when the customer responds, then that turns into a session or a conversation, and I think there's pretty much that's what we're seeing across the industry at the moment on RCS. The GSMA has done a lot to try and align in terms of the various different models. I think that's the various. I think it's important that even though that's relatively simple, that's causing quite a lot of problems. I think that there was an Infobip talked at the GSMA was 13. Talked about how even a simple single message and conversation is causing problems, because the actual definition of what a conversation is not aligned across operators. Yeah. How long is a session? How is it triggered? How many messages are going to be? So all of these, we need to be a little bit cautious from an antitrust kind of point of view. That we, as long as we're working in the right forums, in France, for example, Orange France talked about with the AF2M, we can have a discussion around operators, and I'm sure Alex can talk about that, to see whether we can have an alignment on that to make it as simple as possible for the aggregators, ultimately the brands. So I think that's what we're going to see initially. And then, of course, as we start to evolve and the service becomes well established, then we can start to become a little bit more exotic about things like, cost per monthly active users. I think in the future you will have as artificial intelligence comes in, maybe there'll be more suggested information, more subtle ways of maybe promoting messages. I think we've already seen that on Android messages when you have a chat with somebody and you mention restaurant, and make a suggestion around that. So we can start to see maybe new ways of potential business models evolving in the future with the involvement of AI. But that's going much further down the line. But I think initially it's going to be single message conversation. And I think, as Robert alluded to before, we are seeing far better click-through rates through RCS, and ultimately the brand wants to sell more, and I think they're prepared to pay more as a result.
What do you think, Robert? What models do you think are going to come to the fore here?
Yeah, I think Alex has covered the main models. We've also explored the ability charging on the basis of the content of the message. So a very simple message which would essentially replace a one-time pin with some chip lists could be your bronze. You could have something in the middle that is your silver, which I guess would be a message with some type of media or restrictions on it. And then you've got your fully fledged RCS at the top end. That said, we were really keen at the outset. I think there's enough of a jump in the industry to go from SMS to RCS without having to go to a brand and start explaining different charging models. And as Alex said, conversion, there are lots of different models we can use, but we don't want to introduce too much complexity at the beginning. And I think we have the opportunity to look at these alternative models when we truly understand the return for brands. There aren't enough use cases. You'll typically find that there are different ROI metrics per industry as well. So, gambling, logistics, mobile networks, depending on the products you're selling. If you're selling a holiday via an RCS, that probably looks like a really good ROI. It might be slightly different if you're doing food delivery. So we've kind of kept it relatively simple. And what I always say, I used to look after charge to mobile within the network as well, and the brands or the brands via their wholesale partners used to come to us and say, look, we've got a really unique new use case and it demands a different commercial model. I see exactly the same in RCS. I want the wholesale partners, I want brands to feed back to us and say, look, we see an opportunity, this is what we're seeing in the market, wouldn't it be great if this could happen? And that's when I think it gets exciting. We're not under any illusion that we've got it right from day one, and that's why we expect the market to feed back to us and tell us where the value is, and we'll try and respond accordingly.
Srinivas, do you have any thoughts on this? Because you talked earlier about the verification message. If you take that as an example, should that be charged exactly the same way as SMS, or because of the extra element, is there some different way of thinking about it?
Well, we're still in very early stages, and actually, this is more of a learning experience for me from Alex as well as Robert. I think whatever Robert has said is spot on, and I do believe not a one size fits all model doesn't really work for all brands. Some brands who have a high invoice rate, like a higher amount, something like selling holidays on an RCS, for them the ROI might be easier and better than for other brands that are doing food delivery services. That example is spot on, and I think for me it's more of learning from some of these gentlemen rather than me commenting on this. We are very early days in terms of building a price. We are still working towards it. Thank you.
I guess there's just one thing I can add, Tim, that probably should have included in my response. One of the things that we've actually done on our network is, rather than jumping straight into a session, so a user responds and you jump into a session, which can be expensive and might not suit all use cases, we've actually gone with a capped a capped pricing model. So the way that it works is that it's a single message, it's 2, 3, 4, and then we cap the price at 5. We think that the cost of 5 messages is a really good price point for something like a call center, but actually in the UK we see lots of use cases for SMS where couriers, where taxis are using it, and actually for them to jump straight into a session would add a significant overhead on their business. They're sending typically 2 or 3 messages. So what we didn't want to do was to break the session, to break that use case. So again, we might be wrong, but we did look at some current use cases and try and find the best of both worlds.
I think still early days in all this business modeling, and I think Alex also mentioned this. I mean, it's as time goes, we can become more creative and more exotic about some of these price planning. I mean, in the beginning, it'll have to remain as simple and easy for some of these brands to understand and onboard.
Actually, we've got a question that kind of relates to this topic at the moment, which is about the data component. So maybe Alex, I'll bring this one to you. So
No problem.
obviously, it's another element of rich media interaction is that there's a cost in terms of data. So does the consumer pay that, or is it some kind of zero-rated arrangement you have with brands?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Essentially, it's data. I mean, I think it's the same with any for P2P or anything. Essentially, for receiving and sending, you will be using data. Obviously, under Wi-Fi coverage, then you're not paying for that. Mm-hmm. There are some possibilities of potentially zero rating it, but it gets a little bit more tricky. I think it, and I think that there's ways of maybe redesigning a bot so that when a customer, you can send a bot to a customer which is relatively light, as it were, not too data intense, and then maybe at that point kind of they can click through on videos. I think once a customer interacts with a bot, then I think they have a clear indication that they are, it's like being on the web, you're pulling down and using data. So I think that's
right. Okay. Well,
I think the challenge is, I guess, in some markets, maybe does a customer always have a data connection? Is that data connection always live? Are they always, do they still have a? Yeah, I think it's not just a coverage string. It's also do have a data connection? Do they run out of the bundle or something like that? So I think that's a KPI that we track quite a lot is the registered customers onto the platform, as opposed to just provisions.
Right.
I think the data pricing point of view would be a very short-term kind of mindset, because we are very quickly going to enter into an era where data is going to be omnipresent. I mean, life without data would really not exist. I mean, in maybe in another 2 to 3 years' time, I'm not even going to say 5 years' time. COVID has clearly accelerated that data penetration in various markets. But I can be very assured. I mean, we are on the second half of the chessboard, as they say, right? Next 2 years, I mean, you can. And some countries have actually said data is a basic human right to many of the people, right? So data is going to be omnipresent. Whether you connect through Wi-Fi or through your LTE connections, you would still have access to the same. Whether it's on RCS, whether it's on WhatsApp messaging or Facebook Messenger messaging, it'll be very difficult for operators to segregate the traffic that is actual chargeable peer-to-peer traffic on RCS or WhatsApp versus the traffic that is towards brands. So that will be very difficult for the operators to segregate. And I think it is going to be quite worthless trying to invest time and energy to build solutions around separating this traffic and then coming to a point where data is already present everywhere. The prices of data keeps falling anyway.
Well, can I just add something to just a few minutes ago? You asked, you talked about our Orange and BT's experience on RCS. We're happy to engage with you in MTN. I think it's really important that within the African market, I think we've launched in about 15 markets. Obviously, it's important that as I said this morning, all operators need to launch. We need to hit something like 30%, penetration rate for brands to really take RCS seriously as a way of not just playing and having a couple of pilots, but to really take this as a proper channel to communicate with our customers, and we'd be obviously extend. We'd be obviously whatever we can do to help MTN come on board with RCS. Please,
That's very helpful,
Well,
very kind of you. Well, I'll take you up on that, both you and,
No problem at all.
and Robert as well.
Okay.
there's a meth in action there, fostering industry partnerships in real time.
We're working together.
So I should just add at this point that we tried throughout this session to get Alex from Bouygues on, but we're having technical issues, and it looks like we're not going to be able to get him to join us. So that's unfortunate. And Alex, we miss you, and we wish you were here. Orange Alex mentioned bots earlier, and we obviously brands. This is an integral part of the RCS universe. So Inderpal, I want to come back to you because whenever you talk about bots, you have to then talk about how do people discover these brand bots and so on. And this is a specialist area for Dotgo. So maybe give us a bit of an insight into the state of RCS discovery at the moment and some of the best practices.
That's an excellent question, Tim. I mean, in fact, one of the big differences that is there between RCS and SMS is the P2A incorporation into RCS. And users can use RCS to send messages to brand and can actually thus initiate traffic. But for P2A messaging to work, users need to be able to discover bots. And once they discover bots, they need to be able to send their first messages. And this is why search is so important, discovery is important, and even triggers on how to initiate messages is important. And when we launch RCS with any of our partners, we provide a directory. We call it a bot store, so that users can actually use this bot store to search for brands who have presence, can look at what presence a brand has, what bots they have, and look at a description, screenshots, user reviews, and they can do this search. I think one of the practices we found very valuable is to be able to do this search both over the web and also in a chatbot,
right,
is inside your Messages app. And we actually worked with Orange and with Vodafone, who all of them also have a similar chatbot under development or as well. Our chatbot is called the Bot Store. And along with Orange and Vodafone, we published a white paper on this whole topic of discovery and search. And this white paper is available for download from the MEF website or from Dotgo's website. And this whole effort is, I think, very critical for brands. I mean, if you look at it from a brand's perspective, they don't want to be spending marketing money to push their bots every time. They want this channel to be useful also to them, for customers to come to them, hear from customers organically. And that search function, a directory function, especially one available, whether it's on the web or inside the Messages app, is hugely critical for them. And it's a good practice to have this as you launch and as you get going with RCS as one of the ways to seed traffic and grow traffic.
Well, I think you might have some slides. I'm not sure if, I can show them from my sharing my screen, but I think, yeah, that's right. The MEF guys in the background have sorted this out. That's good. So maybe you can talk us through these in the past.
Sure. I think one of the things we kind of advise, whether it's brands, operators, the ecosystem, is when you launch RCS, since it is so new, you need to provide seeding activities so that whether it is the customers, the end users, or the brands, they get familiar with it. Users just see their Messages app, their SMS app, start delivering RCS message. They don't know what extra is provided in it. So one of the use cases I mentioned from a seeding perspective is rich OTP. This is a technology we developed. We built out with several of the map providers and operators. Many operators price it at or very close to the price of SMS, so as to encourage brands to start adopting this service. And I think Nick Lane mentioned yesterday, people get an OTP once every 4 days on the average around the globe. Some of us get it even one every day. And this provides visibility to all the consumers, and also amongst the consumer are all the brands who are kind of saying, oh, if somebody else can send an OTP this way, why can't I send it? So again, a very powerful seeding activity to grow the ecosystem around RCS. If you go to the next slide, And there are many other use cases that an operator can use to seed traffic. For example, there's a welcome bot that can be provided to educate the market, to educate the consumers of what is new RCS rich media communication, both for person to person and A2 and A2P messaging. The carriers sent out so many messages, whether it is notifications, whether it is promotions. Like Robert mentioned, I think it's hard to hear that BT decided they will do all of their promotions using RCS. I think this is kind of an activity that we see more and more operators adopting, and it really helps educate the market about RCS. Self-care is another example where operators can launch their own self-care services over an RCS bot. And again, we've seen that wherever we've launched it, a growth in traffic of almost 3 to 4x in terms of response rates and click-through rates. And the Dotgo, which I just spoke about as a chat bot, that can be available on the in your messages app to let you search for all the brands that are there. So these are some of the seeding activities we see as very key to grow the traffic.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting from my perspective as an industry observer and journalist. That 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lot of talk about bots and their potential to kind of not replace, but complement apps, and that every brand would have one. And it obviously that kind of has stuttered, that progress there. But I think with the emergence of RCS, I think that will come, and it'll be very interesting to see how companies like Dotgo, who facilitate discovery of these bots, how they help to progress that market. So with that, I think we're just at the end of the time now. So great discussion. Thank you very much to Alex, to Robert, to Srinivas, and especially to Inderpal, because Dotgo sponsored this session. So guys, thank you so much for your time, and for everybody else watching out there, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of the sessions this week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.